anyone not know what cryptozoology is? Great, just wait for it. It'll come. Just like, use your imagination. I majored in anthropology as an undergrad, and I loved it. I still think about it all the time. The reason that I'm drawn to anthropology or the study of humans is because I think all humans are crazy, and that the stories we tell ourselves to understand why we're alive are super compelling and interesting. So cryptozoology is a certain way to understand our place in the universe. So this is why this is called Understanding the Universe Through Cryptozoology. Okay, there'll be 2 parts. Part 1, what is cryptozoology for the 3 hands I saw? Part 2, how can it help humans understand the universe, which is like something I think about all the time because I'm confused and it doesn't make sense. So it won't help. I bet this won't help you, but I think you'll understand that humans are more crazy. So cryptozoology. 1. Okay. Cryptozoology is a study of hidden life. That means things we can't see or we don't know are there. Relies on circumstantial or testimonial evidence where science has rational fact and proofs and experiments. Total opposite. Just like, I saw this thing in a bush. It's a monster. And like, that is cryptozoology. What are cryptids? Cryptids are what you call the hidden animals. So they may or may not be real, but it could be a monster. So the famous, it's called the Big 3. I didn't come up with this. This is what the 5 people who are the cryptozoologists of the internet call the Big 3, which is Bigfoot, who is native to our region and also all of North America and Canada. He's everywhere. There's this Bigfoot research institution where you can log online, like if you see Bigfoot, and someone will contact you, and then based on your report, they'll tell you how you rank if this is like an official Bigfoot sighting or you're just like a freak liar, but they'll put them all on the internet. It's really fun. And then the other one's the Yeti of the Himalayas, the abominable snowman you might know from cartoons. And third is the Loch Ness Monster, Nessie, as she's affectionately called. But she comes up, there's like a lake monster everywhere. There's one in Lake Champlain. They're everywhere. Everything where there's a lake and water moves, there's a monster in it. And that's like, yeah. Okay, so who are cryptozoologists? You are, because it's not a real science that if you say you're a cryptozoologist, you are a cryptozoologist. So this is Amir. You can also be the man of the year, okay? So how long has it been around? You can argue it's been around as long as humans have had language, because if you're trying to explain your surroundings, then you are trying to tell a story, and if those surroundings are about an animal, and you don't have the scientific names for it, when science has been around 300 years and kind of like rational thinking in that way, then you can argue it's all cryptozoology. But the kind of like showpieces of cryptozoology, or 1901, they found this creature, the opossum, and people freaked out all over the world. There's this media sensation. Some guy, his last name Russell, went to Africa and was just like looking around, like all white people did in Africa, not understanding things, and just like any good white person in Africa, when he found them again after he saw them the first time, he shot them all, the whole herd, and one was sent right here to New York to the Natural History Museum to be stuffed. And so this is the opossum. They didn't know what it was. It looks weird. It's related to the giraffe, but it has zebra stripes. So they're like, it's a donkey zebra. They were very excited about it. And then in 1955, this crazy French dude, Bernard Hobelmans, that's really good. In 1955, this is a depiction of him, the rebel of science. He coined the term cryptozoology and really fought to have it be a real thing. He thought that in circumstantial evidence, there's enough to understand, and myths, there's enough kernels of truth to learn about animals that we're not seeing when we see the world in a rational sense. In 1982 till 1998, there was a real international society of cryptozoology headed in Washington, D.C. Hobelmans was the president, and there were scholars there. In 1998, it ran out of funding, and people were like, I don't really believe in this anymore. It had a website till 2005, and like kind of disappeared, but it even had a journal. It had a real journal. It was really trying to put a narrative about science and the way we see things, and arguing that there's another way to see the world than facts and experiments. So notable cryptids. This is a shout out to New Jersey, my home state. This is the Pine Barrens, which is the native habitat of the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil, this is like a couple case studies to show you what is out there in cryptozoology. Jersey Devil has been around since the mid-1700s, and it was thought to live in the woods of the Pine Barrens, sometimes murder people. There was an outbreak in the 60s where in Camden, New Jersey, they were paying people to bring back the body of the Jersey Devil. So the story of it is that this prostitute, Mother Leeds, was having her 13th child because she was a prostitute, and she screamed out, "Let it be the devil!" And then the devil let this thing out of her womb, and she started and it started killing people. And then in the 1820s, this dude, this dude who is Joseph Bonaparte, you might know his brother Napoleon. After Napoleon just he tried to be a writer, but he failed completely. So his brother made him king of both Naples and Sicily, and then also Spain. Then Napoleon lost all the wars, got kicked out, but Joseph came to New Jersey and tried to sell the Spanish jewels. So that's what he was doing. And some days he would go hunting, and one day in 1820s, he went hunting and he swore he saw this, and he spent the rest of his time in America trying to go back and find this thing, which he described as that picture, which is part dinosaur, goat, like that. I don't understand. So the chupacabra is a way more recent one. This comes from 1995. It translates to goat sucker. There was a goat sucking outbreak in Puerto Rico, and these gross little carcasses were everywhere. These little goats that were devoid of blood, completely empty, and people didn't know what they were. Science later said that it was hairless coyotes with the mange and scabies that would didn't know what was happening, would just suck the blood out of everything to try to cure themselves. But people took hold of the story like crazy. They were in Puerto Rico, then they were in Oregon, then they were in Miami, then they were in Mexico, then they were in Texas, which I actually have a short video clip if someone wants to go to the screen. Yeah, Sayo, my assistant here, is going to X out of this. Or you can click, that would be YouTube link. Will that work?
Oh, it says cannot locate the internet server.
Okay, so exit. And then on the desktop, there's the little FL something acronym. Do you see it? Go down a little more. Basically, what I'm trying to show you is a 1-minute clip of a really recent CNN clip where reporters actually go in the field because there's been another chupacabra sighting. I found one as recent as 2011 in Alabama. There's tornadoes going on, but there's still enough story time to cover a chupacabra story that's happening. Did you find it?
I did. It's loading.
Cool. Is that working?
There's no audio.
Oh, yeah.
Frozen carcass preserved by Jerry Ayer here at the Blanco Taxidermy School in Blanco. This creature found by one of his students in Rosenberg.
Put the volume up.
And leathery skin, unlike anything native to Texas.
They got into his cousin's barn, and they thought maybe it was a rodent. Jerry set it up. They had no idea.
Here's not hear that right.
Is the computer volume?
Basically, what you're seeing is not really important. Is this taxidermy school? This guy runs a taxidermy school, so there's that, which is weird. And then CNN has nothing to do but come and see this weird little guy that this guy frozen in his freezer, and now is going to try to sell to a local museum. So this is a thing that happened in 2009. It's still happening. It's a little chuckle that newscasters are oh, the chupacabra, that's so funny. But for some reason we still want to hear about this stuff, which is kind of where I go to in my second half of why we keep telling ourselves these stories. So you can X out of it. Thank you, Saya.
What is that?
They think that's actually the chupacabra found in in Texas, just hanging out. It's a weird little thing, which looks nothing like the little alien picture, but things like that don't really matter in cryptozoology. Okay, next. Okay, so there are some alumni. There's some cool things about cryptozoology. The panda's only been around since 1937 is something that we know. This woman, Ruth Harkness, has this terrible story where her and her husband are traveling in China, and her husband dies, I think of a disease, and then she sees this panda, baby panda bear in the tree, and just steals it and takes it back to San Diego, and it's the first panda in America, which sounds like a horrible story, but then we knew pandas were real, and they were just like things of legend before. So until 1937, the panda was a cryptid. There was also the gorilla, this German guy in Africa, I believe in what is Rwanda today, went and he found it and he saw it and then he shot it and then they stuffed it and then they knew gorillas existed, and so this was the first time. So before that they thought they were like this weird shadow man in the forest, very much like Bigfoot. And then kind of one of the most exciting recent ones is this has been of stuff of legend forever, attacking pirate ships or kind of being this elusive, you can't catch it thing. The size is actually bigger than a school bus, so it's to think about something this big on our planet moving around and not getting the first live picture of it until 2004, kind of incredible. Its eyeball is big as a beach ball, like that's how big this creature is. So it's kind of incredible that these things are alumni of cryptozoological thinking. So there's some, you can say there's some merit to it, but I think it's more, there's merit in the stories that people tell when they see real things than cryptozoology. Okay, so these are spoofs. I call this guy the Weird Al of cryptozoology. He makes all these things. They're like mock cryptids. He lives in Brooklyn now, so here's some other ones. This is the hairy trout, the Canadian hairy trout, and this one is a sea serpent, and they're just like taxidermy parts of other animals that he puts together to be called cryptids. So he's playing with this story of cryptozoology. 2008, there was a really great spoof. These Georgian men from Georgia, the state, not the country, claimed that they found Bigfoot. They had a vial worth of blood that was half dog and human blood, and they said that they skinned, hid the skin of a Bigfoot, but then and they like put it in a freezer and wet it, but it was really just a hairy costume suit, and like when people tried to test it, the plastic hairs in the suit kept on melting. But what they were trying to do was start a company where they would take you on a Bigfoot tour of Georgia, and it didn't really pan out. But again, CNN was like totally on the story. Then kind of a more highbrow spoof. Werner Herzog wrote and starred in this movie that his friend made, Incident at Loch Ness, where they go searching for the Loch Ness monster in Scotland, and they actually find it. And so here's a still from the movie of Herzog talking to the PhD. There's no PhD in cryptozoology. And so he's talking to this guy about it, and then what actually ends up happening is that the monster attacks the boat. And you're not really, if you don't know the spoof and you're a little confused, you might think it's a real story. So it's really interesting that Herzog here decides to be in on the joke. He's totally instead of diminishing cryptozoology, he's putting more folklore out there and saying there is a monster and it attacked me. That's how I know it's real. And then he has this quote that kind of will change the first half of this, which is, okay, I'm not Herzog, so it's not going to sound as great, but I'll read what he says. Finding the monster was never my intention, and so filming it was strangely unfulfilling. And it left me questioning not only this experience, but many things I've done before. It made me wonder what I have been after, all this drama and pain to capture a few moments of light on a strip of cellulite. The truth did not seem ecstatic, it seemed vulgar and pointless. So this brings me to my second part, which is, why do we search for these monsters? If we find them, isn't it a little disappointing? If we found Bigfoot and put a scientific name on it, kind of the thrill would leave. And I think that's his quote on the Loch Ness monster is exactly why we don't want to find Bigfoot. We want to have these systems to believe that are out there. So part 2 is a little bit of a lot of time with me alone, thinking about this. So it might not be perfectly logical, but that's okay because it's in the theme. Hey Kay, why cryptozoologists don't really want to find Bigfoot? So these are my this is my learning tool. Mulder and Scully. Scully, who is on the left, is a very rational thinker, and this is the X-Files if you don't know. I've only watched season 1 and then I couldn't watch anymore. But mainly because I was scared scared as a child because I saw an episode where a monster came out of a toilet, and it really was only till this winter where I watched the first season. But Scully's a very rational thinker, and she's always like working for the FBI and saying like, Mulder, like we need to put this down in a report. I need this in a report because I can't just say like the chairs are floating in the room. And then Mulder saw his little sister abducted by aliens when as a kid, so he's like, not like the world is weird. You can't put it all down in a report. So what I'm introducing is the rational thinking versus irrational thinking, and how we see the universe and how cryptozoology needs of that. So there's rational understanding, irrational understanding. So rational understanding is science, like things we know. Irrational are like, cryptozoology or religion or like anything that we have to like have a faith-based understanding. And then the middle are things that neither can explain, which is why both are valid. The middle is what I call the void. And so like the void is like, why is the universe here? Like, what's our purpose? Like is it all an accident? Like all the stuff that kind of keeps you up at night if you think about it too much, like that is in the middle, and no one can answer those questions, which is why both are valid systems. Okay, so we need something to believe in. Their weird PowerPoint thing. Okay, so then what I did was go ahead and find these like really rational thinkers that are out there, and then find the rational and irrational in their thoughts. So Sagan, Carl Sagan on astrology, which he throws apart like your horoscope, and he puts this quote out there why people believe in astrology, because it lends a cosmic significance to our daily lives. It pretends to satisfy our need to feel personally connected to the universe. It's like kind of heart-wrenching. Like, yeah, I do want to feel connected, and like I'm a Virgo, but he's saying that's an irrational way to think. He's putting a rational point of view on that. However, he goes on to write Contact, which is a sci-fi novel that I think is like kind of his religious understanding of the world, of what a better connection to the universe would be, where a scientist, through a series of wormholes, talks to aliens who are more intelligent than us from another like planet. So that's a little bit of the irrational side, because even Carl Sagan needs something to believe in and needs to feel connected to the universe. So that's his Mulder moment. This guy, John Napier, is an anthropologist, wrote this book on Bigfoot called The Yeti, Sasquatch, and Myth and Reality. So he's this anthropologist. He's a primatologist, to be more specific. So he studies apes, and he was trying to really give credit to the myth of Bigfoot. And he said, if we confine ourselves rigidly to what most scientists would regard as hard evidence, then the answer is heard loud and clear. Bigfoot does not exist. There is no scrap of hard evidence. However, his conclusion of the book is man needs his gods and his monsters, and the more remote and unapproachable they are, the better. Perhaps by the time this book is published, which was in the 70s, somebody will have discovered a Bigfoot. I hope so, but if not, I will happily settle for the myth. So he doesn't want to squash it. He doesn't see the point in trying to use logic to get rid of something kind of magical that the human psyche popped up to help kind of make life more interesting. So this is a kind of meta moment. This is a TED Talk that Michael Shermer gave. He's the author of Skeptics magazine, and I hate him because he takes all these magical things like the Virgin Mary on toast and was like, this is why it is we see this. And it's like, I just want to see the Virgin Mary. Stop ruining it for me. So he has this whole Fred talk about how people are so illogical and they see like the Virgin Mary everywhere and it's so stupid. And then he goes on Charlie Rose and he has this quote. So he writes this whole book about why people believe stupid things, and then at the end, Charlie Rose is like, well, why do they? And he goes, well, for whatever reason, humans have a large enough brain to project themselves into a different future. This is the wellspring of all cults and religions, and I think there's a human need for that. So if there's a human need for that, like if we need to believe in something, then why is that so horrible? Why is that so something to look down upon and try to kind of take the guts out of these like belief systems we have if they're giving us some kind of wellspring of hope that we need? And then there's this term that Lawrence Wexler kind of talks about all the time, who wrote The Cabinet of Curiosities and kind of thinker dude of modern day, and he really likes it, and I like this term too. It's the human's ability to see, I should probably try to say it, but I can't. Apophenia, thank you. Humans' ability to see patterns and connections between unrelated data. So the Rorschach test, we can see this and we all instantly have some kind of understanding in our head. It's something the brain instantly does. And I think this is connected to the rational side of ourselves. We really need to feel, to tell ourselves stories, to feel connected, to have this kind of myth. These myths, these little myths to believe in, especially, and we're all in Brooklyn right now. I don't know how many of us are very religious, but I know that I'm fairly religious. And so I think that knowing that this is part of who we are is something we need to honor, and to have a fuller life experience, we need to buy into this kind of stuff. So there's this really cool French dude who did the anthropology of philosophy. That's his name, and he has a centaur theory, Bernard something I can't pronounce. And his centaur theory is like this half man, half horse, of this like dashing weird Photoshop guy, is the perfect analogy for this. We need a balance of irrational and rational to be a complete human, and that the centaur perfectly encapsulates that. And so why we should believe in cryptozoology is like we should believe in Bigfoot is this kind of peace in ourselves that there's irrational things and rational things, and they can totally come together. And like you can believe in Bigfoot and know that it's not real, and I encourage you to do that, because then you're kind of giving more truth to the human soul, whatever that is, than just ignoring it and killing it with science. So that's the end of my thing.